Welcome back to G Fun Facts Online. Today, we are heading deep into the timeline of human history, specifically to a region that acts as the hinge between Europe and Asia. We are going to the Lesser Caucasus. When the early morning sun breaks over this landscape today, it illuminates fertile valleys around the Kura and Araxes rivers, a place that has served as a crossroads for human civilization for millennia. But we are looking for the silent testimony of a people who vanished long ago. They left behind a legacy not carved in gold or written in books, but etched in glass. We are talking about the Shulaveri-Shomu culture. This is a Neolithic society that flourished between 6000 and 4000 BCE. Now, usually, when we talk about this time period, we talk about the birth of agriculture, or the first mud brick houses. And yes, the Shulaveri-Shomu were pioneers of viticulture, winemaking, and they built fascinating circular architecture. But their most cutting-edge contribution to the ancient world was not built of mud, but napped from the Earth's volcanic veins. We are talking about obsidian. This episode is about the black gold of the Stone Age. It is a detective story played out on a geological scale. By chemically tracing the unique fingerprints of obsidian artifacts found in these ancient settlements, archaeologists are now reconstructing a vast, 7,000-year-old web of commerce and contact that predates the famous Silk Road by thousands of years. So let's dive into the story of the trade routes that knit together the prehistoric Caucasus. To understand the economic engine of the Shulaveri-Shomu, we first have to understand the material itself. What is obsidian? We often call it stone, but strictly speaking, it is a naturally occurring volcanic glass. It is formed when felsic lava rich in silica, extrudes from a volcano and cools rapidly with minimal crystal growth. That lack of crystal structure is the key. Because it is amorphous, it is hard and brittle, and it fractures to produce edges that are sharper than the finest modern surgical steel. If you look at a steel scalpel under a microscope, the edge looks like a saw. If you look at an obsidian fracture, it is smoothed down to the molecular level. For a Neolithic society that lacked metal tools, obsidian was not just a luxury item, it was the absolute pinnacle of technology. It was the primary material for sickle blades used to harvest early wheat and barley. It was the scraper for processing hides for clothing. It was the knife for daily survival. Now, the South Caucasus is geologically blessed with some of the world's richest obsidian sources. The volcanic highlands of what is now Georgia and Armenia are dotted with flows that were accessible to prehistoric miners. We need to look at specific sources to understand the map. Key locations included the Chikiani volcano in southern Georgia and the Gegem, Gutanzar, and Arteni volcanoes in Armenia. Here's where the science gets incredible. Each of these volcanic flows possesses a unique chemical signature. Think of it like a geological barcode. It has a specific ratio of trace elements, like barium, zirconium, and rubidium. Using modern techniques like X-ray fluorescence, or XRF, researchers can scan a tiny flake of obsidian found in a farmer's hearth at a settlement like Shulaveri-Shomu, and they can pinpoint the exact mountainside it came from hundreds of kilometers away. This allows us to map the movement of these people with unprecedented precision. The Shulaveri-Shomu were not merely consumers of this material, picking up rocks off the ground. They were industrial innovators. The hallmark of their lithic technology, their stone tool technology, was something called the long prismatic blade. If you look at earlier epochs, stone tools were often crude flakes. But the Shulaveri-Shomu blades were standardized, mass-produced tools. They used a technique known as pressure flaking. This requires immense skill. A craftsman would prepare a core of raw obsidian, then, using a chest crutch or a long lever likely tipped with copper or antler, they would apply immense, controlled pressure to push off long, parallel-sided blades. This wasn't banging rocks together. This was engineering. This method was incredibly efficient, maximizing the amount of cutting edge that could be produced from a single block of raw stone. At archaeological sites like Arateshin and Akhnashin in the Ararat Plain, archaeologists have uncovered workshops littered with thousands of obsidian shards, cores, and finished blades. The sheer volume of debris suggests that these were not just household activities where someone made a knife for dinner. These were specialized production centers. These blades were the export-grade products of the Neolithic. They were lightweight, high-value, and easily transported. This brings us to the logistics of the operation. By mapping the distance between the sources and the settlements, a picture of complex logistics emerges. Let's look at the northern corridor. In the Kura Valley, in the Kfemo-Kartli region of Georgia, sites like Shulaveris-Gora and Gadatrili-Gora relied heavily on obsidian from the Chikiani source. Now, Chikiani is located in the Javaketi highlands. To get this material, traders or specialized procurement parties would have had to navigate a treacherous ascent. The river valley settlements sit at approximately 500 meters elevation. The volcanic plateaus where the obsidian sits are over 2,000 meters up. The presence of Chikiani obsidian in these lowland farming villages implies a vertical trade network. This connected the disparate ecological zones of the Caucasus, linking the high-altitude herders or miners with the lowland agriculturists. Then we have the southern nexus, in the Ararat Plain. Settlements here utilized a diverse portfolio of sources. At Artashin, nearly all obsidian came from local Armenian sources, like Artini and Gutansar. However, as the culture matured, the network expanded. We see materials moving across the landscape in patterns that suggest more than just direct travel. Perhaps the most startling discovery is the reach of these networks, the so-called ghost roads. Shulaveri-Shomu style blades and obsidian from Caucasian sources have been identified as far away as the site of Domuz Tepe in southeastern Turkey. That is a linear distance of over 670 kilometers. But if you were walking it, navigating the terrain, it is a journey of nearly 800 kilometers on foot. This finding challenges the old view of Neolithic farmers as sedentary, isolated people who never left their valley. It suggests that the Caucasus was not a cul-de-sac, but a bridge connecting the Near Eastern heartlands of Mesopotamia with the Eurasian steppes. So how did a razor-sharp stone travel 800 kilometers without a wheel or a pack animal? Archaeologists debate two main theories. The first is direct procurement. In this model, individuals from the settlements traveled directly to the sources. This is likely for sites within a day or two's walk of a volcano. However, the physical difficulty of accessing high-altitude sources like Chikiani, which is snowbound for months of the year, suggests that such expeditions would have been seasonal and highly organized events. They were perhaps embedded in summer transhumance, which is the movement of livestock to high pastures. The second theory, which likely applies to the longer distances, is down-the-line exchange. In this scenario, obsidian changed hands many times. Village A traded with Village B, who traded with Village C. In this bucket brigade of commerce, the value of the material likely increased the further it traveled from the source. By the time a Caucasian blade reached the Halaf culture sites in Mesopotamia, it may have been regarded as an exotic, prestigious item, imbued with the mythos of distant, fiery mountains. This brings us to the social aspect. We have to remember that this trade was not purely economic, it was social. In the Neolithic, exchanging gifts was a way to forge alliances, secure marriage partners, and maintain peace between potentially rival groups. A core of high-quality obsidian was a princely gift. The presence of exotic obsidian, stone from a distant source when a local one was available, hints at these social networks. Why use stone from 200 kilometers away when there is a source 50 kilometers away? The answer lies in the relationship. Using stone from a distant ally signaled a connection to that group. It was a tangible representation of a social bond. Think of it like a friendship bracelet made of volcanic glass. Furthermore, the technology itself traveled. The spread of pressure flaking techniques alongside the raw material suggests the movement of ideas and experts, not just stones. It implies a shared community of practice that spanned the entire region, unifying distinct tribal groups under a common technological umbrella. The obsidian trade routes of the Shulaveri-Shomu laid the groundwork for the future of the Caucasus. The paths worn by Neolithic obsidian traders eventually became the tracks for the Kura-Araxes culture that followed, and later, the metal trade routes of the Bronze Age. When the Silk Road eventually wove its way through these valleys millennia later, it was following the topographical logic first exploited by these early stone knappers. Today, as we analyze these glassy artifacts in sterile laboratories, we are connecting with a vibrant, mobile, and sophisticated ancient society. The Shulaveri obsidian is more than just debris. It is a map of human ambition. It proves that even 7,000 years ago, no community stood truly alone. The Caucasus was a beating heart of connection, pumping its lifeblood of black glass across the arteries of the ancient world. That is the legacy of the Shulaveri-Shomu. Thank you for listening to G Fun Facts Online. We will see you in the next deep dive.